back with Republican presidential candidate Mike Huckabee. It's nice to have you, sir.
Thank you, Glenn.
I have a very conservative audience on the radio and television, and I have been surprised at their response when I said, I was in Washington, I was having dinner across the street from the White House. I was up on top of a building. I looked down, I could see the Oval Office, and I said to the guy who was with me, I said, right there, in that room, decisions are made that affect hundreds of millions of people. Mm-hmm. And how many people do we have that is running for president of the United States that actually pray on their knees? I couldn't believe the response I got from so much of America. They said, why do you have to pray on your knees? Tell me why it's important to pray on your knees if you're the president of the United States.
It shows humility. It shows that you truly understand that you're not God. You've been elected to be president. That means you've been elected to be a servant. You've not elected to be the Lord. And it's a big difference. And I don't think the physical posture is what's necessary in prayer. I do a lot of praying when I'm out running.
Yeah, I do
pray
too.
a lot of different ways. And sometimes it's, you know, when people don't even realize I'm praying. I'm standing at a podium and somebody's asking a question. I'm praying hard. Dear God, give me an answer real quick.
Have you ever made a decision on something and then prayed on it and changed your mind?
I try to pray before I make the decision. I think that's the better way. I think that's part of what you go to as a Christian believer. I believe in James chapter 1, verse 5, if any man lack wisdom, let him ask God, who giveth to all men and giveth liberally and upbraideth not. I think that what we do is sometimes we end up, you know, pulling our guns out of the holster. We take the shot, and then we say, now, let's see, did I check the target? What we need to do is to first do the praying and then make the deciding. And sometimes that has to happen pretty quickly.
You left your Baptist ministry. You were a minister, a very popular minister in your Baptist church. Do you believe God called you? Are you standing in this role because you feel prompted?
I don't see this any way a conflict of my ministry. I see an extension of my calling. I think the ultimate calling for a Christian believer is to be salt and to be light. And the metaphor that Jesus used, salt, was not a seasoning to kind of spice it up. It was preservative. In the day of Jesus, there was no refrigeration. There weren't ice chests. So when the fish came out of the water, by the way, the fish were like Baptists. As soon as they come out of the water, they start spoiling. You know, we like to say that. But when the fish came out of the water, you pack them in salt, and that preserved them. So when Jesus was standing at the Sea of Galilee, he said, you're the salt of the earth. What he meant was, when things are spoiling, when things are rotting and decaying, then faith is what keeps them from getting worse. Faith and being the salt preserves. So be the preservative. If you're not going to be the preservative, you're like sand. You might as well not even exist. He was very bold about that.
It's interesting to me that we are a people now that we like the look of a godly man. But if we hear someone say, you know, in James chapter 1, we recoil. What is that? Why is that? Can a guy who can quote the Bible be elected president in today's world?
Well, if he can't, then we've lost more than an election. We've lost a country. This country was founded on people who believed very strongly in faith. When I come to Washington, one of the things I like to do is to run and go out around the memorials. And if you've not been, and I'm not saying you specifically, if people haven't been to the Jefferson Memorial lately, I urge them to do it. And go and look at the inscriptions. Read Lincoln's second inaugural address. And I wonder, why can't we talk like this anymore? These are the people who shaped our country. These are the people who wrote the very documents on whose blood has fallen our freedom. And now it's almost, if I said those words and didn't tell you it was Jefferson, somebody would probably be filing a lawsuit. Or there would be a lot of talk shows saying, Mike Huckabee can't be president. He actually used words like this. All I'd be doing is quoting the founding fathers.
You know, as a fellow man of faith, that the Lord has promised he will make weak things strong. I believe that is a personal thing that all of us, we misunderstand that. I believe that our weaknesses end up being our strengths if we just deal with them, because they're the only things that we have to pound out and forge with fire. If we don't address them, we cut ourselves. When somebody else pulls them out, they can kill us with our own weapon. What is the weakest thing about you? What is the thing that you found weak and forged?
You know, I grew up not with a great deal of confidence. because I grew up in a household where there was struggle. I didn't have the nicest clothes. I didn't live in the nice house. I, didn't have the sort of privilege that a lot of my friends had. And I think that puts you sort of in this position of thinking, I'm not as good as those other kids. And what I had to learn by faith, and it was a faith issue, was that God makes up the gaps. And that's, to me, what grace means. God fills in all these gaps. And there are a lot of gaps for me. When people say, well, you're one of those Christian types, does that mean you think you're better? I said, no, you don't understand. Being a Christian means I know I'm not nearly as good as I even need to be, so I'm not going to be upset because you're not everything you ought to be either. It doesn't mean I think I'm better. It means that I've accepted the fact that I know there are great big gaps in my life, and that's where grace has to come in and fill those in.
Okay, can't leave the faith section without asking you this question.
Okay.
Would you vote for a Mormon?
I don't know that that would be an impediment, but what I really want to do is I want to vote for somebody whose views not are just compatible with mine, but somebody whose views are compatible with their views. I want somebody to be consistent. I want someone whose compass points north and always has. I don't care if a person disagrees with me. Quite frankly, Glenn, I can live with someone who is 180 degrees different from me. I just want him to look me in the eye and tell me, this is what I believe, not because the political winds are blowing this way. And if the person says, let me give you an example. Pete Stark is a member of Congress. He's a Democrat. Mm-hmm. He's an announced professed atheist. Mm-hmm. I was asked on Bill Maher's show, does that bother me? And I think I shocked him. I said, no, Bill, I have more respect for Pete Stark, who says, hey, I'm an atheist.
That's why I vote for Joe Lieberman. I vote for Joe Lieberman. I disagree on so many. I know when he closes the door, he's going to say the same thing behind my back that he said to my face.
Well, character is often been described and defined as character is who you are when nobody else is looking. And I think that's so important. People are looking for authenticity in their leaders, not perfection, because none of us can provide that. None of us can be perfect, but we can be authentic. Okay. And there are times I'm going to have to look at people and say, look, you guys disagree with me on this. Okay. I can live with that. But
getting down to the nitty and gritty with some of the policies that Governor Huckabee would like to bring to the country if he is indeed President of the United States. Back